Hi and welcome to another episode of Mark's Motivational Podcast. Today I'm delighted to have another great author on the podcast tonight. She's a published author. So it's great to welcome you today, Sharon. Thanks a lot for coming on the podcast.
Thanks very much for having me on, Mark. Thank you.
Great. And I'll probably just start by congratulating you on getting your book published or your novel published.
Yeah, thanks. I actually signed a 3-book deal with Poolbeg
Right.
during the summer.
Yeah.
The email to say that they wanted to work with me came through on the summer solstice. So forevermore, I shall consider that day my lucky day.
Brilliant.
I love the
Yeah.
summertime, and it just felt, I don't know, very significant. It was the summer solstice. I was getting the email to say that they really loved the manuscript I'd sent, and they were offering me a 3-book deal. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely brilliant. Congratulations. That's great news. And we might just start off the podcast, if you wouldn't mind telling the listeners a little bit about yourselves and the books yourself and the books you've written would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, I mean, I have a grown-up family. I live here in Dublin with my husband, and my 3 grown-up kids are still living at home, although my 2 girls are actually just about to move out after Christmas. So, and sort of years ago, I worked as a journalist for kind of various national newspapers. But I did sort of pretty much, I mean, chuck it all in. I mean, I did various things along the way. I did a bit of freelance work, and I would have sort of written short stories, entered them in competitions, got lucky sometimes, had some published in magazines and so on. So I always kind of dabbled and kept my hand in. And then I sort of wrote an online blog, which I still write. It's called This Funny Irish Life.
Right. Yeah.
But it was really just a way for me to keep tapping into that creative part of myself, because I don't know, I mean, journalism was a way of earning money, obviously, in the early days. And, I was lucky enough then to just, I know this sounds like kind of strange to say, but I was lucky enough to be able to chuck it in. And concentrate on raising my family, because that's what I wanted to do. And I know not everybody has that choice and is lucky enough. And we were very fortunate that I was, with, as I said, with just some forays back into it along the way, but we needed a bit of extra money, but to be able to stay home and sort of raise my kids. So I kind of waited a good while then before I started attempting to kind of write very seriously and to write novels. I don't even think I trusted myself or felt that I had a novel in me for a long time. And I was kind of in my 40s then before I started trying to write novels. And I put an awful lot in drawers, and I had an awful lot of rejections. Yeah, so it's been a very long journey, but it doesn't really matter, because I just feel that now is the right time, because now is when it happened.
Yeah.
So it just felt like the right time. So it's absolutely fine that it's happening now.
And it's paid off, thankfully.
Yes, I mean, they say the more you practice something, the better you get.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just kept practicing.
Yeah, coincidence.
And
And
getting
what's the
better.
name? What's the names of the books, Sharon? What are the?
So the one that finally landed and made it is called The Last Saturday in July, and it's a romantic comedy. And basically it's about this woman who has a one-night stand on her hen weekend. And then she finds that the person, her new colleague in work, happens to be her one-night stand. And they're kind of forced together to oversee this huge, big celebrity wedding. And the celebrity wedding happens to fall on the same day as her own wedding. on the last Saturday in July, hence the name of the book.
Yeah, yeah.
And the celebrity wedding is also taking place in this beautiful 5-star hotel on the west of Ireland, but it's a 5-star hotel which is a 400-year-old castle, and the castle comes with a wedding curse. So there's all kinds of shenanigans goes on, and yeah, it all builds up to this one very unforgettable day of the 2 weddings.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll have loads of people watching this and listening to this and say, "Oh, get a copy of that. Sounds really funny." Yeah, great
Yeah,
stuff.
so I mean, when Poolbeg got in touch, I had found I had sort of worked on this for about 2.5 years, and it really was ready to go. And I suppose there was very little to be done, and they were able to slot me in quite quickly. So my book came out in October, but because it was such a short gap, if you like, between them accepting me as one of their authors and me being published, they slotted me in as a digital first author. So it's online on Amazon, but you can also get it on Amazon as a print book. You can order it as a print book. So whether you like the print book in your hand, or whether you just prefer to read on your Kindle, which is really cheap, it's cheap as chips on Kindle.
Yeah.
You can get it either way. Yeah.
Great stuff. Would you mind maybe as a treat for the listeners, you might read out a little bit of your book? Would be great.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Yeah, I
Very
will.
good.
I'll just I suppose just to give you an idea of my
Yeah,
style of
please.
writing as well. I'll read the first page and a half.
Great.
And yeah.
Thanks very
Okay.
much, Sharon. Yeah.
Chapter 1. For the last time, Kate, I was totally cool about being put on that ferry to the Isle of Man. Like, would it even be a hen party without a practical joke? Jess Bradley tipped back her head in the loose of the Charleston Hotel Group offices and squeezed a couple of eye drops into her right eye. Kate flicked her a look in the mirrored wall as she slicked on some lipstick. Jess, I've known you since we were 12, and your eye always does that twitching thing when you're lying. Twitching because I'm tired, hence the drops. Jess took a deep breath and held it while she aimed the tiny bottle towards her left eye. Really? Kate looked doubtful. Of course. Jess swiped the corners of her eyes and straightened up to flash her best friend a bright smile. Kate sighed. Fine, but I still feel bad. It was my job to arrange everything, and that was not on the itinerary. I love that you're a control freak. Jess scrutinized her slightly frizzy mouse-coloured hair and decided to tie it back. It made her feel more professional. Sometimes it was the little things. Why do you think I asked you to be my bridesmaid? Anyway, it wasn't like I was in any danger. Zoe was with me. Kate looked slightly mollified, and Jess's insides squeezed with guilt. No offense to your sister, Jess, but that doesn't make me feel much better. I didn't even know she'd planned it until the last minute. Kate tucked her dark bob behind her ears. Seriously, I tried to tell her it was a stupid idea, but she said it'd be a total laugh. Jess vaguely remembered Zoe giggling and telling the others that they'd be fine, only for her to pass out drunk on the bed as soon as she and Jess had checked into that hotel on the Isle of Man. She'd be strongly tempted to kill her sister if Zoe wasn't a photographer who'd agreed to do her wedding pictures free of charge. Yeah, well, you know Zoe once she gets an idea. Jess shuddered. To be honest, I'm still not over that TikTok video.
You read that really well. Great stuff, Sharon. Yeah, thanks a lot. That's brilliant. I have to say, you read it really well. Brilliant. Thanks for sharing, and that's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. And can I ask as well, Sharon, where did the journey begin for you as a writer? Have you always written yourself?
Yeah, I mean, like I was writing stories when I was really young. I mean, I was that really annoying kid in school who was just really bad at everything except English, you know. and just basically made the most of that. And just wasn't interested in anything else. I must have driven the teachers crazy. But like I was, you know, like I was one of those really odd kids who just couldn't get enough books. And I remember now, even like thinking back, it was really strange. You know, when your mum or dad would kind of buy your school books during the summer holidays that you had to have for the new year. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't look at any of them except the English readers. And I'd have them all read by September. So I'd know. And then I used to be really bored in class because I'd read all the stories
Yeah.
and the little snippets of stuff and anything like that. Like I used to, you know, used to love all of that. And then I think maybe, like I remember in primary school as well, like when the teacher wanted a rest, she'd say, Sharon, have you written anything? And I'd always have written something, you know, like I'd be reading like Enid Blyton or whatever, and I'd be sort of writing in the style of Enid Blyton, like basically nearly plagiarizing the poor woman. But I'd always have some mad,
Yeah.
stupid story about like kids in a boarding school, which I knew nothing about. But, you know, anyway, she'd sit me up on the stool and I'd just read the class, and sure, they were happy not to do any work, and
Yeah.
the teacher was happy to take a bit of a break, you know, like.
Mm.
So I think, yeah, I was always writing from a really young age, and I just loved it. And I suppose that's why I think I became a journalist, because it seemed to be the only thing at the time that I could do, you know, which involved writing, but also that like I'd make money from, you
Yeah.
know, because I had to have something I could make money from,
Yeah.
you know. And like it would have been way too precocious, even for me at 18, to say, it's all right, I'll just become a novelist, you know.
Yeah.
Like I was never going to be a runner, not with my very practical parents. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That sounds like a win-win on the school and in work, doesn't it? Have this-
Oh yeah, no, totally. Totally.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And you were a journalist in a lot of newspapers. Wow, like in a lot local
Yeah,
newspapers. Yeah.
yeah, like I would have started off in, yes, so I did an arts degree, and then I did a postgrad in journalism.
Okay.
Um, and then I just started off in one of the local newspapers. And then like I was there 6 months and it closed down. Not because of me. Like I didn't do anything too awful. But they pulled the plug on it about like 5 days before Christmas. I remember that was an awful feeling. So anyway, that was my first job and it was gone. And then I kind of managed gradually to break in and get a lot of work in the Evening Herald. And
Okay.
I worked
Yeah.
in the Evening Herald for a good while.
Hmm.
And yeah, and then I kind of got married and had my first child. And yeah, I sort of worked part-time then for a couple of years. And then, sorry, I really, as I said, I didn't want to keep trying to juggle. I found I was never very good at juggling
Mm.
when my children were little.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just decided I'd concentrate on, you know, being the best parent I could. You know, I mean, my kids might have other ideas about how that turned out, but anyway, I gave it a go. And yeah, and then later on, I suppose, my eldest would have been about 12 at the time, and I went back for a couple of years, and I did an awful lot of freelance work, mainly for the Irish Examiner.
Okay.
And they were great to work for because, okay, so I mean, obviously they're in Cork,
Hmm.
um, but they let me obviously work from Dublin, and any writers they had, you know, authors like touring, who'd come over to Ireland and would come to Dublin. And so I used to get to interview them. And that was great crack
Yeah. Yeah.
because I was meeting all these like really famous writers like
Mhm. Yeah.
Jodie Picoult and Stephanie Meyer, who wrote the vampire ones, you know.
Mm.
Um and yeah, like kind of loads of kind of writers who were sort of, you know, very well known and whatever. So that was good. And other things too, obviously. I worked in features mainly.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
wasn't doing news, so it was easier to do.
Yeah. Great stuff. Great stuff. Yeah, and it's great that you've used your talents in writing through your life. So that's amazing. You've got to use
Yeah,
what
yeah,
you enjoy
no.
doing most.
Well, thank
Yeah.
God, because I don't really have that many. Like, I was never going to go into business or, medicine or anything like that.
No, congratulations to you. It's great, great stuff. And it's great to welcome you on the podcast. And as well as that, would you have a strategy with your writing, Sharon? Like, what I mean is, would you write a certain amount of words a day, or how do you do it yourself?
Yeah, it's funny because I think that changes if you get a deal,
Mm.
and I've noticed it this time. So before you have your first book accepted, if it's like a 3 book deal or a 2 book deal or whatever, you have all the time in the world, don't you? Like you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
just,
exactly.
it can be days or even weeks that go by and you wouldn't write, or you wouldn't write very much, or actually you might sit down and edit a few paragraphs, or whatever. And then as soon as something like this happens, you're on a deadline,
Mm.
and it's scary. So luckily, when I had handed in the first book, I had already started the second one.
Mm.
And so when I was talking to the publisher, she was kind of saying, "Oh, have you started?" And I was going, "Oh, yeah, and I'm so many thousand words in and whatever." But I mean, I'm not that kind of person. Like, I've never done NaNoWriMo or whatever it's called, the November thing where you try and get through
Yeah,
50,000 words. Like, that would just panic me completely. I
yeah, yeah.
can't sort of sit and write
Mm.
5,000 words a day or 1,000 words a day. I don't count in words like that.
Okay.
So what I try and do, when I'm starting a new book, first of all, I have to have like a very clear idea. I have to know that it's a story that's going to work.
Mm.
And I would throw together some ideas, and, kind of I heard once that like a book is kind of when you can pull together a few different ideas that
Mm.
don't seem to kind of link up, but somehow you make them work. Somehow you make them kind of link up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Somebody very famous and much better than me said that. And I'm paraphrasing it badly.
No, no,
But
you hear it really well. No, I can hear what you're
I
saying,
would sit
definitely.
down.
Yeah.
I would sit down anyway, and I would make sure that I would have a story that would come together for me.
Mm.
And then what I do is I would do out a synopsis. And I sometimes I even write the blurb, and I go, "Oh, is that an exciting blurb?" Because when you're writing the kind of stories I suppose I like to write, which are sort of romantic comedies,
Mm.
you know, and very close to romantic comedies, they have to be they're I suppose they're high concept stories. So and story in them. But then there's also a very strong my characters also have to be very good, because I think people really tune in to the characters as well. And so then when I'm pretty sure that it's going to work, then I start kind of sketching it out. I have an idea of what my first act will look like, because that'll be my first 10,000 words.
Yeah.
Because my stories would all have to be around 90 to 95,000 words. And I might write my midpoint, and then my kind of closing act. But I might just kind of sketch it out very quickly, and you know what I mean. I might just sort of put down the skeleton, in other words,
Mm-hmm.
and then I I try to sort of I concentrate just on writing my horrible first draft. And some people really enjoy writing that first draft,
Mm-hmm.
and they love it because it can go anywhere. To me,
Mm-hmm.
that is the scariest
Right.
part of writing. It's just the scariest thing on the whole earth, because I just think, oh my God, it's going to fall apart, or I'm never going to be able to do this again. Maybe it
Mm-hmm.
was just a one off, it was a fluke the first time. Um, so anyway, when I put down a horrible first draft, I go, oh my God, that's just desperate. Oh, well, who did I think I was ever kidding? And then I would take it and, then I try and get a second draft down. But I do breathe a bit once the first draft is down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the first draft might only be about 60,000 words, but at least I have something to work with. So I think I do plan quite a lot in the beginning,
Right. Yeah.
and then I start kind of filling things in. And I know things are going to change as they go along. And quite often a lot will change, like my ending or a whole, kind of a sub story or whatever that might change quite a lot. Because that's quite often quite important in it, or my B plot or whatever will kind of change quite a bit. But as long as I kind of the core story is there and I have that down, then I always feel I can kind of mess around with everything else.
Mm.
Does
No,
that answer your question?
it
Is that
does.
kind of all?
That's no, that sounds great. Like it's a great strategy. It sounds to me like a
Yeah.
really good strategy
Okay.
because you've got the skeleton there of the story, and that's what you need, really, isn't it?
Completely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I couldn't just look at a blank page and start
Mm.
writing.
Yeah.
Because in my head I'd have a horse,
Mm-hmm.
and on the paper I'd have a camel,
Yeah.
and like I want a horse at the end of the day.
Great.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have to kind of have a skeleton first. Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that because that's so helpful for people that are listening as well, Sharon, who are writing a book. So that's brilliant. Thanks so much.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
problem.
And as well as that, Sharon, you were saying like this the first time you got a publisher, is that correct? Have you went down the self-publishing route before that?
No,
Has that ever
no.
happened to you?
No, about like 6 or 7 years ago, I did have a book published with a very small publisher. Now,
Right.
again, it was traditionally published. The money was only going one way from them to me. But it was digital, and it's no longer available or whatever. I withdrew the rights, after the 5 years or whatever. But it was good in a way to sort of dip my toe in like that,
Yeah.
because I got an idea of, I suppose the kind of things that are expected of you when
Mm.
you publish a book, and so on. But it was very different because they were a lovely publisher, but very small, and didn't have the money to sort of run marketing campaigns or anything like that. Whereas this time, and I did want to hold out to sort of get a very much an established publisher.
Mhm.
So when Poolbeg said yes, I was delighted because they're running ads for me, and there is a marketing strategy there, and like it feels good to be supported like that, when you've put such a lot of work in. Like, it's lovely, yeah.
Yeah, that feels great. I'd say, yeah, absolutely, yeah, great. And how many? You've got three books. They done three books for you, Sharon. You said
Yeah.
what
Yeah,
are you
so I'm
making three
writing the
books for?
second one at the moment.
Oh, God, oh yeah,
And
sorry.
yeah, so I mean it's a standalone. It's nothing to do with the first.
Okay, yeah.
Um and I haven't quite decided yet what my third one will be, but I do have some ideas. But I'm
Right.
trying not to think about it too much, because you're not meant to think about the third one really when
Yeah,
you're trying to think about the second
yeah, yeah.
one. It's always, ooh, that one looks pretty over there. When you're kind of struggling with the, words for the second.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'll have to try and concentrate.
definitely. No, no, great stuff. Because when I'm going to share all your links to your to what you've sent me on the show notes as well for people to check out as well, Sharon. Yeah, so
Brilliant.
that's great
Brilliant.
stuff. Yeah. And did you ever experience in your writing as well, Sharon, the nice thing called writer's block or hit a metaphorical wall? Has that ever happened to you?
Oh my God. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I try not to think of it as a writer's block.
Okay.
And I just try and trick myself into thinking I don't have writer's block, because sometimes you do run into a rut. And like I think every writer does. But I think it's just, you're trying to think your way out of a problem, usually a plot problem or whatever. And sometimes you have to be like ruthless. You have to just go, okay, this isn't working. Let's lose this bit and just like introduce something else. And I've actually, for this one, I've already done that. There was something that just wasn't working. And even though it took quite a bit of work and it was quite a ruthless thing I did, I stripped it all away.
Okay.
Even though I put quite a lot of work into it, but then it started to work better. So like sometimes you just have not to be afraid of that. And then if it's just kind of smaller things, I think it's all the usual stuff, like you go out for walks or you do the hoovering, you clean your loo, because quite a lot of the time when you're doing other stuff, your back brain is kind of working. And even if you're not actively thinking about the writing, if you just kind of go, this will be fine, it'll work out. Whereas I think sometimes if you try and push it, you kind of get into a panic. And if you get into a panic, your brain freezes. You can't think through the problem at all. So I just try and go away and do other things for a little bit. And now the other thing I do, and I found myself doing quite a bit of this with the first book. And God love my daughters, they were so good. But my two daughters were actually readers in the later stages now. They helped me sort of. So one was really good on the grammar. She's a teacher, so she's really good at all that.
Yeah.
So she read it through. I was kind of going, Mom, the syntax is wrong here. And I was going, okay, just a little red pen in the margin, love, And she did all that for me. And the other one, the younger one, actually read it and went, okay, there's no way a 30-year-old woman would say that. It's really old-fashioned. Do you know what I mean? She was kind of my cool young reader who made sure that I was on the nail with all the kind of the phrases and the way of thinking and, all that kind of stuff. And so actually what I used to do, God love her, she knew what I was doing, but like she went along with it. I used to drag her out for walks. And we go for long walks along the river and I go, so, the problem I'm having at the moment with my celebrity part of the story is that when so-and-so does this, how on earth is this going to work out? And she'd go, oh my God. But we'd kind of talk it through and she might just say something, even that, she wasn't sort of actively trying to help me, but something that she would say would trigger something in me. And I go, oh my God, that'll work. And she kind of look at me and go, what'll work? And I go, doesn't matter. You didn't realize it, but you said something. And and then I come home and I just fix that bit, So I find brainstorming kind of with kind of younger people like that who, I suppose in fairness, a lot of people have read this book from great grandmothers. One of my daughter's friends' great grannies actually read the book and loved it. But then I've had 20 somethings read it as well and love it. But I suppose because my characters are all kind of around their 30s, it helped to have, people in their 20s and 30s sort of reading it and going, or, that I could brainstorm with.
Yeah. Well, that's great to be able to get your family involved in it as well. Like, the there,
family affair.
That's brilliant. Yeah. Because that must have been hard for you to get rid of a lot of the work you put into it. You had to scrap it. That must have been tough to do.
For this one, absolutely, it was. But you just, when you get this feeling, it's a gut feeling that it's just not working, and no matter how hard you try, it's like you're pushing against a brick wall, and you have to step back and be really honest with yourself and go, okay, this bit is not working, and suddenly you strip it all out, and it's painful to do. But when you do it, And like, I didn't just go, oh, delete, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
I did like kind of copy and paste and put it in a file for safekeeping. And I know I will never look at that file again.
Yeah.
It's in a file in case I need it again. But that's just to make me feel better about the whole stripping it out. And I know it'll be fine. Yeah. Yeah, it'll work now. I
Great
hope.
stuff. Yeah, yeah. But no, that's a good idea to have a backup somewhere, all right?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, you
Yeah,
never.
yeah,
And I think that also comes, I mean, I know other writers do that too, but like that comes from being a journalist years ago. You never got rid of anything. You kept everything. You kept every notebook, you kept every scrap of paper, because you'd never know, like, when anybody would turn around, even like a couple of years later, and go, I didn't say that. And you go, actually, you did. I have it here in my notebook,
yeah,
dated, whatever, you know. So it was just like you'd hang on to everything. And so I still hang on to everything. I won't like just ditch stuff. Because as I said, you just don't know when you're going to need it.
yeah. No, that's a good lesson, all right. Definitely. Yeah. No, thanks a lot for that, Sharon. Can I ask you as well, kind of, because it's kind of a motivational podcast as well, what kind of keeps you motivated in your writing when you're doing your books and your novels?
Um, well, I mean, now it's like there's the whole small factor of the contract and the deadline that I'm on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I have signed a contract,
yeah.
and I have a deadline. So there's that, obviously. But I mean, up to now, it was just what kept me motivated. I think I never felt right if I let days go by without writing. And
Mm,
it would really affect my personality. You know what I mean? I'd get very edgy and very tense.
mm,
Um, so I know to feel kind of grounded,
yeah.
I need to write every day. You know,
Mm,
it's just that part of me that I need to just
yeah.
kind of do, you know.
Hmm.
Um, I'm explaining it really badly, but
Oh, yeah.
it's just, I mean, that's all it is. It's just, I don't feel human if I don't write every day. So, the way some people go out for a run in the morning,
Yeah.
uh,
Mm,
and they need to run every day.
mm,
Or, they might play, like my son plays hurling and Gaelic.
yeah.
And like he hates when there's a long break over Christmas or whatever, from the club. And he kind of gets out of sorts a bit, and it's absolutely normal. Like
Definitely.
you,
Yeah.
if you're doing something that you're used to doing, it becomes kind of part of you, and it's not good for you to stop.
Mm.
So I've always kind of been like that about writing. I just feel better when I write.
No,
Yeah.
that's great because I understand exactly what you're talking about there because like it's like any habit when you're used to doing it, like you say, running or anything like that. When you're not doing it, something's niggling at you to say, "Oh no, I need to do to do this." Like, yeah,
That's it. Yeah, that's
definitely,
it. Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Thanks very much. And just to ask a few of your favorites, like your books sound brilliant. Thanks so much for sharing them. They sound really good. Yeah, if so, a few of your favorites, you kind of already said this on the great bio you sent me. But like, just for the listeners, what's your
Sure.
favorite kind of books to read yourself? I think I probably know the answer to this already.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I
Yeah.
read a lot of romantic comedies. And I tell you, there's a great author. I don't think she writes anymore because she'd be much older now. She's an English writer. And when I was younger, I discovered her like almost by chance. And I started reading her books, and I think she got me into romantic comedies. Her name is Catherine Elliott.
Okay.
And she wouldn't be sort of as well known now, say, as some of the younger writers who are writing, like Beth O'Leary and Farry McFarland and Catherine Walsh and Jessica
Sharon Black.
Redland. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah. And obviously some of the really big writers like Sophie Kinsella and Sophie Ronald, and you know, but like she to me, she was like the queen of romantic comedy back in the day. And her stuff was just brilliant, and her characters were fantastic, and her, you know, she was like genuinely laugh out loud funny books.
Yeah.
But I found also, and of course, you know, I love all the Irish writers like kind of Marion Keyes and Sinead Moriarty and Caroline Grace Cassidy, and you know, but I also read in other genres. So you know, I like general women's fiction. Like Carmel Harrington is a great writer.
Okay.
I read all her books when they come out. And I love historical fiction as well, like people like Hazel Gaynor. But I also like some thrillers. And I would read Catherine Ryan Howard, and I would read Sam Blake. Um, you know, so they're all women. I met all women, but you know that I'm in. Funny enough, we don't read commercial fiction at all. So we would read an awful lot of literary fiction, which is very highbrow, very posh altogether. So when we wash it down with plenty of wine.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah. Uh, so, but I mean, it's gas because they said they'd read my book for the next book club. So I just thought, well, I just not go to it because I don't want to be there when they're discussing it. Like, that'd be weird. But they're just doing it out of politeness, basically, you know, because mine is purely commercial. Um, but so, you know, I have discovered though, you know, like that's the great thing about being in a book club, because you're forced to read an awful lot of writers that you mightn't discover otherwise, because we all get it in turns to kind of pick
Right.
up the book that we're going to read for the next month, you know. And there's some absolutely brilliant writers, you know, out there. Like I've just read John Boyne's latest book, and it's called Water. And it's actually just a little novella. And it's the start of kind of 4 books that he's going to write, and they're all going to be named after the elements, so like water, earth, wind, and fire.
Okay.
And it's just this woman, and she goes to an island off the west coast of Ireland to sort of escape her troubles. And you know, it's a beautifully written book, but very, very interesting story also. And he's a super writer. And then we'd read, I think, was it the last time, William Boyd's book, The Romantics, and a very, very different book again, but again, very interesting. So I do read quite eclectically. And I think it's important for writers to do that, to keep pushing themselves. So it's funny, it's kind of like you know, they kind of say that if you're writing in a particular genre, you have to read very widely in that genre, because you have to know what's out there.
Yeah.
But you also have to read outside your genre, you know, so that your mind is kind of expanding and you're getting all these kind of influences, and it's always improving your writing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's important to read within and without the genre that you're writing in.
That's great advice, Sharon. Thanks so much for that. Because
Yeah.
the book club, that sounds like an excellent idea. Like, because you're reading at the same time, and you get to discuss certain parts of the books. That's brilliant. That's a great idea.
Yeah, that's it. And it's our book club has been running a really long time, because about 23 years ago,
Wow.
when my middle child was 2,
Okay.
and I was just kind of, you know, apart from sort of seeing my lovely mom, who was helping me out a lot with my girls, and you know, seeing a few friends for coffee when the eldest was in Montessori or school or whatever she was in at the time. You know, I felt my brain was kind of beginning to go to mush a bit, because a lot of my world, and you know, it's normal when you're a young mother, you know, a lot of my world was very much centered around the children. And because at that stage I wasn't working outside the home. I felt I needed, real stimulation. And if I had just left it to my own devices, I would have maybe just kept picking up the same type of book and making it very easy for myself. So I said to a few friends, do you want to start a book club? And they all went, oh, yeah, that'd be great. So they must have all had the same idea, and we had the first book club in my house, and I just made everyone a lasagna. And so that's how it started. And so the same group that started all those years ago, and there's only a small group of us, we're still running 23 years later.
Brilliant.
And we're still cooking for each other every month. Yeah.
Right, that's great. And that must have really helped through COVID, did it, Sharon?
Yeah, although it was kind of sad during COVID because we couldn't meet each other.
Yeah.
We were all practicing our social distancing. So we were doing like book clubs on Zoom, which was really like just, I never want to do that again.
No. Yeah. We all found Zoom was our best friend back then, but didn't we?
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. Yeah. Oh yeah, no, you were there on Zoom with your glass of wine, Oh, hello, yeah. Did you enjoy the book this month?
Yeah. And yeah, I'm just interested, like, the way the book club, like, yous all be reading at different paces, like, so you just kind of have to wait till they're all finished the book, do you? Is that the way it works?
No, we set a date from month to
Okay.
month.
Right,
So we make sure that we read that book within the month.
all right,
Yeah, so it's often like I will just make sure that if there's another book I want to read, and there usually is at the same time, that I would either read the two of them like at the same time, or I would get one finished quite quickly and then move on to the other one. But I often find that I can read more than one book at the same time if they're two very different kind of books. So with the book club, as I said, it'd be literary fiction. And then I might read like, a thriller or a rom-com or a drama or whatever it is, which would be very different again. And so it's very easy to sort of split my brain like that, and just
I got you,
read two. Yeah.
yeah. Wouldn't read 3 or 4 in one go, you'd be your head would be.
Yeah, no, I can't do that. I'm not the genius, It's like two is about my limit there.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Oh, and your favorite film as well? Do you, no, it doesn't have to be a favorite, but one that comes to mind.
Oh my goodness. Okay, actually, I do have a favorite film. Now you're going to laugh at this, right?
Yeah.
But my favorite film of all time, because I think it combines everything that I absolutely adore, and it's Back to the Future.
Oh, I'm with you there. I'm with you there. I love that film as well.
Yeah.
It's great, isn't it?
I mean, it's absolutely perfect. It ticks every box. I mean, it's got the drama and the romance, it's got the comedy, and it's got time travel. And I'm a real sucker for time travel. I mean, if like you can sort of find me a film that combines all that, I will just drop everything and watch it every time. So I loved that there was a book that came out a few years ago and it was actually made into a movie. It was called The Time Traveler's Wife. And I loved the book. And then I watched the movie as well. And I was in floods of tears at the movie. And my husband was going, oh, for God's sake. And he was kind of walking out of the room going, what is she crying at,
Yeah.
But I loved it.
Yeah.
And there's another great one with Donald Gleeson, and that's about time. And Bill Nighy is in that as well. And they're great actors, the two of them. And Rachel McAdam, I think, she's in that one as well. And again, it's like, it's just very clever and very
Sorry, is that
funny.
Brendan Gleeson's son, is it?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
Donald Gleeson.
he's
Yeah,
very good,
Brendan
isn't he? Yeah.
Gleeson's son. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
in it. Yeah. And it's just like it's about this family of men who can all like travel back in time, and but they all find out on their 18th birthday, so or 21st birthday, something like that. It's some significant birthday, and so the character who's like the Donald Gleeson, he finds out, his dad tells him, and of course he doesn't believe it, and they have to go off into a wardrobe or something, and then they think of the day they want to go back to. And it's a
Oh, yeah.
marvelous movie, but it
Right.
combines all that romance and that comedy as well, which I really love, you know. I love very clever stories. I
Mhm.
do not mind suspending my disbelief, but I just love a story that's really well told, and I love to be entertained, you
Yeah.
know, and I make no apology for that.
No,
You know,
no.
that I am not a heavyweight. I like to be entertained.
Mm.
And so I also love all the kind of the romantic comedies that would be on this time of year,
Mm.
like oh the one about the holiday swap,
Okay.
and Love Actually, even though I know there's a couple of dodgy bits in that. Anyway, um, it's
Yeah.
stalkerish bits.
Mm.
It probably doesn't. And you know, Four Weddings and a Funeral and Notting Hill, all those great Richard Curtis movies. You know, I loved all those. Yeah.
And would you hope to have your books in a movie sometime as well, Sharon?
Do
Is
you
that a
know
goal
what?
of yours?
You have no idea the amount of people who've said it already about this book. Oh my God, I could see this as a great movie.
Yeah.
But like, you know, I mean, the thing is, I suppose loads of people write these kind of rom-coms, and they're very rarely optioned for movies.
Okay.
It's a very hard thing to get, you know, to
All right.
achieve, I suppose.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I suppose these sort of books do lend themselves better
Mm.
to being made into movies, maybe than some other books. Yeah.
You know, the best of luck with it. I hope that avenue happens for you, you know?
Yeah, that's right.
Stuff. And your favorite music as well to listen to when you're relaxing?
um Gosh, yeah, so I'm kind of the same with music as I am with books.
Okay.
I listen to everything. I
Exactly.
like quite eclectic, you know. Now I don't. There's like some really modern music I don't really like. I don't kind of, and I don't really like heavy metal or kind of stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm like a little bit old-fashioned like that. But like everything seriously from kind of classical music. And when I say classical music, like I'm not into Mozart or anything, Bach. I actually consider them really boring.
Mm.
But I love kind of really kind of sweeping romantic sort of music, you know, like
Mm.
all the ballet music, Stravinsky, and you know, people like Mendelssohn and Beethoven, you know,
Stuff.
very sort of romantic music.
Mm.
And you know, piano sonatas and you know, whatever. And I also love some jazz, um, kind of really sort of old-fashioned jazz. I love a lot of Latin American music,
Mm.
you know, like music that I can dance to, like sort of salsa stuff and rumbas and, you know, really exciting music like that. I love
Right.
all that
Yeah.
because I love to dance, actually. I
Mhm.
really love to dance.
Mm.
And then I don't know, I like an awful lot of music from the 80s because I was a teenager in the 80s.
Yeah.
So that was when I was going to discos like the whole time. I'm surprised I passed my leaving cert. I went to so many discos in the 80s. It's just like what I seem to do when I was growing up. And yeah, so I like all that kind of modern sort of disco, not modern. 80s isn't modern anymore, but you know what I mean?
Mm.
All that kind of stuff. And then I like some Irish trad music,
Right. Yeah.
and I like some American country singers. Oh, what's her name? Oh, well, I like Dolly Parton, obviously, but everybody likes Dolly Parton.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Shania Twain, I like her
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so it's really eclectic. Like you can't really box me into one particular,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
you know, thing and go, oh yeah, no, we'll get her this for Christmas because
That's great selection
I
there, all right?
like everything. I like a bit of everything, you know.
Great selection there, all right? Brilliant.
Yeah.
And do you ever listen to music when you write? Is that something you ever do?
No, for some strange reason I can't.
Okay.
I really find it puts me off my game.
Hmm.
So like I used to be able to do a bit of work in like cafes and restaurants and stuff.
Mm.
But I'd find if music came on, especially music that had like, you know, where somebody was singing, I'd
Yeah.
be just like singing along. and it'd be like this like worm in my head, and I wasn't able to concentrate on what I was writing. So I really can't listen to music when I'm writing. And even like if people are talking in the background or whatever, I really have to try and tune them out. And just kind of make it white noise, because I have to sort of just be in my own head, you know.
Just tune them out completely. Yeah, I'll be the same.
Yeah.
The only thing I found was music without lyrics can be a thing that some people, everybody's different. They're gonna get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I sometimes I just find myself losing myself in the piece.
Okay, yeah.
And, you know, and especially if I know the piece and I'm kind of expecting the next cadence or the next whatever it is, you know, for classical music.
Yeah.
And it's really annoying because I'd love to be able to listen to music. And I know people who can do it, and you hear of writers who go, oh, for this book, it felt like a Mozart book, or I listened to this song by the Eurythmics the whole time I was writing it, and it got me into the mood. And I go, oh, I'd love to be like that, you know.
Yeah, I know.
You know, but I'm not.
Oh, grand, yeah, great. And your favorite place to travel as well, Sharon? Do you have any favorite places to travel on holidays?
Yeah, funny, my husband and I were always great for taking like city breaks, you know. I love cities. I just find them quite exciting. I'm not really a beach person. Like I can take a certain amount of sort of sitting in the sun, kind of under an umbrella and reading a book, but I'm not kind of one for lounging around on the beach for 2 weeks, you know.
Yeah.
So we used to always kind of go on city breaks and whatever. And then obviously when our kids came along, we usually managed to do like a yearly holiday, you know, 10 days or whatever.
Yeah.
And so we found this when the kids were really little, and we were incredibly lucky actually. We found this gorgeous little town, proper little town on the Costa Brava in Spain.
Nice, yeah.
And we used to go back to the same town every year, and we used to rent the upstairs of a house from the most gorgeous couple, an older couple, and we just take that part of the house, and we'd stay there for our 10 days or 2 weeks and potter around the town. And you know, so it was on the beach, but we would also be able to say travel into Barcelona for a day, or we'd be able to travel into Girona for a day, whatever. Yes, so we were able to do that, you know. And now that the kids have all grown up and kind of are absolutely not interested in coming on holidays with us, you know, we're kind of back to doing our own thing, and it's lovely. And actually, we didn't take a summer holiday this year because like it was just so hot everywhere on the continent.
Yeah.
You know, it was desperate. But what we were able to do was in October, we took 10 days in Athens in Greece. And it was my first time ever in Greece, and I've always wanted to go. And it was just fabulous to go to Athens. And we kept so busy there. You know, we did all the archaeological stuff and all the museums, and we went to the theatre, and we went to open air amphitheatre at the foot of the Acropolis, and you know, it was fabulous. You know, I loved all that.
I love Greece myself. Yeah, it's a lovely country. Yeah, it's really
just beautiful. And my first time ever, as I said, you know, yeah. So I have to discover more of Europe. You know, we have been to a few places like Italy and Paris and, you know, so on. But yeah, I need to discover more of Europe now.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Yeah, I must check Athens out myself. Lovely. Yeah, so thanks a lot for coming on the podcast, Sharon. It's been great talking to you. So what's next for yourself?
Thanks
For
so much.
people watching and listening, what's next for yourself, Sharon? What can people look out for?
Well, I hand my second book in in I suspect that'll come out later in the year then in 2024.
Yeah.
But I don't have really any control over that. I mean, it'll be up to them. But as far as I know, that's more or less what's happening. But for the moment, people are buying this one, and I'm getting some nice reviews as well. I've been very lucky.
Well done. And the book launches, do you have book launches? Have you done one of them when your last book launch?
Yeah, I did actually have a book launch. I did. Yeah, I had a book launch, and I had a lot of hard copies on sale at a kind of a special price for the launch, and
Okay.
it was lovely. We had about 50 or 60 people, and the writer Sam Blake actually launched it for me. So yeah, that was great. It was great fun.
Really another great thing, yeah. No, that's great. Thanks a lot, Sharon, for sharing all your work with me. It's absolutely brilliant talking to you. And just before you go, if you're to give the listeners and the
Thanks,
watchers on
mate.
YouTube a bit of advice in writing, what would you get? What would you say, please? If just a little bit of advice.
Okay, the first thing I'd say is no matter how many rejections you get, if you're out there and you're putting yourself out, you, you just never ever give up. And I remember telling myself this years ago, the only difference between the writer who doesn't get published and the writer who does is that one of them gave up. And you just keep showing up every single day and treat it like a job, and you just keep learning, there's so many fabulous resources now on the internet, and there's so many groups, and you can Google anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Google's a great man, and you just, yeah, every day is a chance to learn, and every day is a chance to just improve your craft. And I learn every single day, and keep hopefully improving.
Yeah, no, that's great advice, Sharon. Thanks so much. And you're shortlisted as well, for a prize. The best of luck with that. What was the shortlisting again for, Sharon? Sorry.
Thank you. No, I think I was longlisted for
Oh,
something,
longlisted. Sorry.
and I genuinely, yeah, no, I genuinely can't remember what it is. You put me on the spot there.
Sorry. I have all your information there anyway to put
It's all
on it.
right.
So don't worry about that. I didn't mean to do that. Sorry about that. But listen, I wish you all the success going forward, Sharon, with all you do, with all your writing, and all the success.
Thank you.
And no, thank you. And thanks a million for tuning in today's podcast, Mark's Motivational Podcast, from another great author. Make sure you check out our books, Sharon Black. I'll be putting all her information on the show notes. So once again, thanks a lot, Sharon, for tuning in, for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Thanks a million. Take care. Hello, everyone. Mark here. Thank you for watching another episode of my Authors Tuesday podcast. I recently published a book of children's stories called The Adventures of Larry Lamppost and Friends. The book began life as bedtime stories I wrote for my own children. If you'd like to purchase my book, follow the link in the description box below. By buying my book, you are also supporting my podcast series for authors, which is giving a voice to writers in Ireland and across the world.
you.